The soft evening light spilled through the wide glass windows of the James family mansion, falling gently over the antique furniture and polished marble floors. The air smelled faintly of pine and the perfume of Mrs. Huyen's freshly brewed tea. Yet, beneath that peaceful atmosphere, tension flickered like an invisible storm. James had just returned from work, his hands still slightly stained with sawdust from the new shipment of wood he had personally inspected. To him, the scent of wood meant progress, stability, and hope. But today, it carried something heavier. He knew what awaited him upstairs, a conversation with his father. "Dad," he began carefully, standing at the edge of the grand living room where his father sat reading reports. "The contract with the new supplier has been approved, and there's something else I want to talk about." Mr. Robert James didn't look up immediately. His silver hair shimmered faintly under the golden lamp. "What is it, son?" James hesitated for a second, then said, "It's about Diep." The moment her name was mentioned, the room seemed to grow colder. His father lowered his glasses slowly, eyes narrowing. "You're still talking about that girl?" "Yes, Father," James said, trying to remain calm. "We've been through enough to understand what we want. Diep is kind, hard-working, and—" "I'm not interested in hearing that," his father cut him off sharply. "I told you before, that woman is not suitable for you." Mrs. Huyen, sitting quietly nearby, frowned slightly. "Robert, at least let him explain." But his father ignored her. His eyes, sharp and proud, met his son's with quiet anger. "You may run a company, but you still lack judgment in life. You're a CEO, James, and she's a farmer's daughter. Divorced, with a mysterious child she suddenly calls her own? Tell me, how can I allow my only son to marry such a woman?" James clenched his fists. "That child, baby Nhi, she's not what you think. She's innocent. Diep didn't have to take her in, but she did. That's compassion, not shame." "Compassion? Or guilt? You don't even know whose child that really is. What if it is hers? What if you're raising another man's daughter under my roof?" The words cut deep. James wanted to shout, to defend Diep, but he saw the rigid determination in his father's eyes, the same eyes that had guided our family through decades of business wars and success. Arguing now would be useless. Mrs. Huyen's gentle voice broke the silence. "Robert, you judged too fast. I've met the girl. She's sweet, polite, and the child looks nothing like Diep." "Looks can deceive," Mr. James replied coldly. "You women are ruled by feelings. You don't think of the consequences. I built everything in this family by using logic, not by following my heart." He stood up, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. "I forbid this marriage. Until I know exactly where that child came from, there will be no wedding." James's throat tightened. The weight of those words fell on him like a stone. He knew his father's disapproval wasn't just about class or pride. It was something deeper, something rooted in fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of a hidden truth. Outside, the rain began to fall, tapping softly against the glass. Mrs. Huyen turned toward her husband, her voice trembling. "Robert, you've spent your whole life protecting this family, but maybe now it's time to let your son protect his own happiness." Mr. James didn't answer. He simply walked away, leaving behind a silence heavier than thunder. That night, as James drove to see Diep, the memory of his father's words echoed in his mind. Baby Nee's innocent laughter replayed like a melody, yet behind that laughter lay a mystery his father could not ignore. And for the first time, James began to wonder, was there really something about Baby Nee that he didn't know?
The night was heavy with rain when James parked his car outside Diep's small countryside home. The light from the kitchen spilled softly onto the front yard, where the faint scent of lemongrass and ginger tea floated through the damp air. Inside, Diep was humming a lullaby while putting Baby Nee to sleep. The sound was so tender, so pure, that James stood by the door for a long moment before knocking. "James." Diep's eyes lit up when she saw him, though surprise quickly softened into concern. "You look tired. Is everything okay?" James tried to smile, but failed. "Can we talk?" Diep nodded and poured him a cup of warm tea. The moment he sat down, the weight of the earlier confrontation pressed against his chest. He looked at her, her face glowing faintly in the soft yellow light, and the words caught in his throat. "It's about my father. He still refuses to accept us because of Nee." Diep's hands froze on the teacup. "Because of Nee?" "He thinks she might be your biological daughter." James' voice was quiet but firm. "He believes you're hiding something." Diep's lips parted, but no words came. The sound of rain grew louder outside, filling the silence between them. For a long time she didn't move, her gaze fixed on the steam rising from the tea. Then, slowly, she spoke, her voice trembling. "James, I didn't lie to you, but there is something I never told you. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd look at me differently." She turned her head toward the small room where Baby Nee was sleeping peacefully, her tiny hand clutching a stuffed rabbit. "Nee, she isn't my biological daughter, but she is connected to my past." James leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Diep took a deep breath. "Years ago, before I met you, I was working for a company that ran charity projects in the countryside. There was an accident, a car crash on a rainy night. A young woman died, leaving behind a baby. I was there. I held that baby in my arms when no one else would, and something inside me told me I couldn't let her go." Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled faintly. "I named her Nee. I promised that no matter what, I'd give her a home." James felt his chest tighten with emotion. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because people talk, James. They always do. I didn't want anyone, especially your father, to think I adopted her for pity or to fill a void. I wanted Nee to grow up in love, not judgment." James closed his eyes for a moment. Everything about Diep, her quiet strength, her compassion, her pain, hit him with the force of a wave. "You didn't have to be afraid," he said softly. "You did what was right. I'm proud of you, Diep." She looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "But your father won't see it that way, will he?" James shook his head. "No, not yet. But he will." The sound of thunder rumbled in the distance. Nee stirred in her sleep, murmuring softly. James stood up and walked to the child's bedside. As he looked down at her, a strange thought crossed his mind. Her small face, peaceful and innocent, seemed almost familiar. He turned back to Diep. "You said there was an accident. Do you remember anything else about the woman who died?" Diep frowned, thinking. "Not much. It was chaotic. But I remember the car had a foreign license plate. The man who came later said she used to work for a big company overseas." James' breath caught. His mind flashed back to something his father once said about a woman who disappeared after a scandal in their company years ago, a woman connected to his family's dark past. Could it be the same person? The rain fell harder outside, and James realized something chilling. Perhaps his father's refusal wasn't just about class or pride. Perhaps it was because he already knew something that James didn't.
The next morning, the sky was gray, and a quiet tension lingered in the air. James drove straight to his family's villa, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The conversation with Diep from the night before haunted him. The crash, the baby, the woman, something about it didn't sit right. When he entered the study, his father was sitting by the window, sipping tea as if he had been expecting him. "You look troubled," the old man said calmly. James didn't waste time. "Father, what do you know about baby Nee?" His father's hand froze mid-air. Slowly, he placed the teacup down and turned to face him. "Why are you asking me that?" "Because Diep told me the truth. Nee isn't her child. She was adopted after a car accident. But I think you already knew that, didn't you?" For a moment, silence hung between them like a sharp blade. Then his father sighed deeply. "Yes," he admitted, "I knew." James's chest tightened. "How? Why didn't you say anything?" "Because the woman who died in that accident," his father said, voice trembling slightly, "was your mother's old friend, and she was carrying the child of a man who worked for our company. When the accident happened, I ordered the incident to be buried. I didn't want the scandal to destroy us." James stared at him in disbelief. "You're saying Nee could be related to our family?" "I don't know," his father said, "but when I saw her, something in her face reminded me of your mother. That's why I couldn't let you marry Diep, not because I hate her, but because I feared the past might come back to destroy you both." James felt the ground shift beneath him. Everything suddenly made sense, his father's anger, his hesitation, the sadness in his eyes. But instead of feeling relief, James felt only one thing: heartbreak. "Father," he said softly, "the past already destroyed enough. I won't let it take away the woman I love or the child who calls me Dad." For the first time in years, his father didn't argue. He only looked out the window, eyes clouded with regret, as James walked away, determined to uncover the full truth and protect Diep and Nee, no matter the cost. Days turned into weeks, but the storm inside James's heart didn't fade. He couldn't stop thinking about what his father had said, that baby Nee might be connected to his own family's past. The uncertainty haunted him, yet every time Nee ran into his arms calling, "Daddy," all doubt melted away. That little girl wasn't just a piece of the past, she was his future. One evening, James went to the small house where Diep and Nee were staying. The lights inside were warm and soft, flickering through the window. Diep was in the kitchen, teaching Nee how to roll dough, their laughter mingling with the aroma of baked bread. It was such a simple scene, yet to James, it was everything he had ever wanted. When Diep saw him, she smiled shyly. "James, you've been quiet these days. Are you okay?" James took her hands gently. "Diep, I know the truth now. About Nee, about my father, about the past. But I don't care anymore. What matters is you and her." Tears welled in Diep's eyes. "But your father—" "He's afraid," James interrupted softly. afraid of losing me to the same kind of pain he once felt. But love isn't something to hide from. It's something to protect, no matter how complicated it gets. At that moment, little Nee toddled over, holding 2 tiny paper rings that she had made from candy wrappers. "Mommy, Daddy, here, wedding rings!" Diep burst into tears. James knelt down, hugging both of them tightly. "Then let's promise," he whispered, "that no matter what happens, we'll stay together. Family isn't about blood. It's about love." Outside, the evening wind carried the faint scent of jasmine, and for the first time in months, James felt peace. His father's fears, the secrets of the past, all of it faded into the background. What remained was the truth he finally understood. Love, once chosen with the heart, can overcome any history.